Happy last 15 minutes of Sunday. About 15 minutes away from it being January 3rd, 2022, which back in the old days, pre 9/11, was Super Bowl, would have been Super Bowl weekend, either this week or next week. But ever since 2002, when they postponed the season a week and they moved it and shifted it all the way into February, Super Bowl has been in February. But prior to 2002, almost every Super Bowl, in fact, I think every single Super Bowl was on the last week, either the third or fourth week of January. But ever since 2002, and the Patriots won it that year, I guess they thought it better, better ratings, better whatever, to have it in there. And then the Pro Bowl is a joke, so we don't even go to that era. So let's see if this is even working. I have not. I just got home and I'm gonna watch The Last of Us as soon as I'm done here. I'm still trying to work out and see if anybody, if our crew wants to do a post show. But I found out they hadn't played the game, so it's like, oh, I wanted differing points of view as far as, like, I wanted to have one person who hadn't watched the game or played the game, which is myself, and then somebody who had, but we don't quite have that yet. So yeah, I've been people have been messaging me telling me it was great. The first episode is going to be a lot to live up to. Like I said, the first 15 minutes of that show just had me hooked. Had me hooked. But I figured I'd want to jump on. Want to try to jump on every night that I have energy to do so. As long as I can keep myself limited to 45 minutes to an hour, then I don't think it's detrimental to me. I get plenty of sleep that way. It would be the same thing if I was going to a bar after work or having dinner and having a conversation with anybody else. So as long as I can keep my energy up, I'm feeling a lot better. Last week, or yesterday, I felt like shit, and every time I talked, I coughed. Might happen today, but the cough is a lot better. I got the sinus draining is a lot. It's a lot less than it was over the weekend. So happy to be there as far as that goes. Yeah, I'm with you, Aaron. I just got home, got some food, cooked the dinner, and just felt like having a casual conversation, and then I'll go into watching The Last of Us. But like I said, HBO just doesn't put out shows that aren't quality. Now I know a lot of people are seem to be angry about Velma. Holy shit! But I don't think people understand that the outward hate towards that show is just generating conversation, which generates views. Even if HBO Max conceded that the show is horrible, if it's getting them views, they're not going to care. I mean, so everybody who's trashing Velma, I mean, outwardly doing it, everybody's like, wow, can that be as bad of a train wreck as it sounds? And guess what they end up doing? They end up watching it, and now you got into season 2 coming. So that's hilarious. How you doing, Jeebus? I may have to put you on the show then, because like I said, I just didn't want to do a show where neither one of us had played the game. And right now, all we have is people, that haven't played the game, between, the people who I usually do my show with. So, all right. So let me, one of the things I wanted to share with people is one of the reasons, obviously you guys know that I'm heavily, heavily, heavily into the whole serial killer genre. Ever since I was a kid, it started with love for horror movies, but I've always been fascinated. Like I said, I don't want to glorify the violence and the innocent victims, but the mindset, the fact that somebody could just shut their mind off enough to do the kind of things that they would need to do and to be able to turn that back on again and function in society. So one of the things we had done, we did it in 2020. We were about to do it again before the rain killed us, and we're going to do it on March 17th and 18th. There's a thing called Project Ripper, and I told you guys about how we were doing it, and I wanted to show you. Hold on, I wanted to show you kind of like what it is. So let me put in some of the overlays here. So So there's one of the suspects, one of the extras, got all the fake blood there. This is our plaza that you see us in, and he's one of the suspects. He had blood on his hand because he played the butcher, and a lot of people were misdirected and thought it was him. And here's the rest of the people. Not rest. This is like some of the people. These are the contestants, the people who guessed, who sign up. We give them a pad, a notepad, our art pad to recreate drawing these crime scenes. They have gloves in there. They have pens in there. And this year they'll have badges and stuff. And once again, we're in our plaza, and this is at one of the murder scenes. And this is actually the girl that won it. She's the one who figured out everybody and figured out who our killer was that year. And each person had to take notes. And as you can see, she's got notes in her hands. And we gave you clues throughout the entire 2-day period. And you could only win by using the clues. You just couldn't come up and say, well, I think it's the doctor because, now you actually had to use the clues that we led, and you had to put that together. And so that's her with her notes. And each person who thought they knew who the killer was, who the Ripper was, had to get up in front of the in front of the audience and present their case. And then we would judge how much of the evidence that they used. These are our suspects for that night. The butcher, who was always cutting meat, so he had blood on his hands. The guy next to him is, I got the overlay on here. So the guy second from the left, that's actually our killer. He was a doctor, or he was a medical examiner. And then the doctor was in the middle, bartender, and then we just had a decoy guy that just rolled around. This was the last night, and this is when we lined up all the suspects. There's our host with the top hat there. And that's how, this is, when they would get up and, and let us know, hey, this is why we thought it was. This is where we saw him. This is where the timeline's like. They had to put together the evidence to do it. There's a couple of our participants standing in front of there's a clock tower front window in our plaza, and then there's one of the victims. And as you can kind of see the wound, this is during COVID, so even our dead victim had to have a mask on. So that was a lot of fun. So let's see. All right, Kinky Speaker, Zach Johnson, Justice League 2 and 3 are inevitable for to Integrity 1. Is he here already? Rational Scud, remember Charles and Leonard Lake? Yeah, they the videos of their killings were very disturbing. And like I said, we never even seen what's on all of them, but it's said to be pretty graphic. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We're about to do it again. So how you doing, Mondo? Must have been so much. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of hard work because you had to coordinate and you had to move people around. Our plaza's pretty decent size. It's dual level, so as we were staging the murders, we had to have the participants and the people who were playing the game. They had to be on the other side. And then, as you know, with the Ripper killings, there's something called the double event. His third and fourth victims are killed within an hour and a half of each other. So we had to stage that in the plaza. So it's a lot of fun. I know I have too much fun when it comes to the serial killer genre, but damn, it's kind of cool. William, who do you think was the Zodiac killer? I don't know. And the sad thing about the Zodiac killer is the way evidence collection was back then. Once they found somebody who they thought it was, they really zeroed in on that. And I don't think like today's investigations, even if you had an investigator that said, you know what, I really think that guy did it. The way forensic science and forensic pathology and forensic psychology works today, it would never have gone down to that. They would have always had several different people and several different, lines of evidence that would have eliminated or stiffened, who they thought it was. And once that they didn't find enough connecting evidence, like Arthur Lee, a lot of the people, even the person who wrote the books for Zodiac thought it was Arthur Lee, but there wasn't enough evidence there. And there really never was a lot of evidence putting it on him. But they continued down that road. Today, if there was an investigation like that, okay, even if you had somebody who heavily believed it was him, there would be a crew of people that literally focused on everything else. They would be focusing on DNA. They would be focusing on a lot of the different things, circumstantial evidence. But it was 1967 to 1971, so it's really easy to criticize, over half a century ago, knowing what we have now. Like I said, if the Zodiac Killer and Jack the Ripper would have committed their murders today, they literally would not have been known as serial killers. They would have just been known as bargain rate murderers that got locked up. They would have ended up on an episode of the first 48. And they would have had their 48 minutes of fame, and that would have been it. But because we did not have, not only did we not have the tools to track down a killer like that back then, we didn't have the mentality to know what a serial killer was. They weren't even looking for a serial killer. The difference between the Zodiac is he stamped his victims. He actually let you know it was me. When he kills a cab driver and cuts off the piece of the cabbie's shirt and sends it in, when he leaves the letters, when he calls from the crime scene saying, I just killed 2 people, that was different, because if it wasn't for him using those methods, because he killed people different ways. He shot people, he stabbed people, so there was no serial to the killing other than how he attacked. He would attack couples. He would attack them in secluded areas. So that was his MO. Jack the Ripper's MO, like I said, that's his means of killing is what let them know. But that was early. We're talking 1888 when you had murder, but you didn't have serial killers. Now in 2023, hell, serial killers literally is a genre of entertainment. We have so many, and and we even have TV shows where we root for the serial killer, like Dexter. So yeah, it's it's hard to tell who the Zodiac Killer was, because they never made a strong case for anybody, in my opinion. Are the suspects and victims paid actors? Are they all voluntary? They were all voluntary participants. We gave them like prizes and stuff themselves. Like we gave them like, movie tickets, and some of the restaurants that were there at the time gave them dinners and stuff like that. And they got, like little, certificates, and, we would hook them up with some cool stuff. But yeah, they were all volunteers. Yeah. And the same thing with the victims. William, do you know about Ariel Castro kidnappings? No, I do not. Is that the name of the case? Hold on. Now you got me looking. Ariel Castro kidnappings. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I remember this. And I remember the picture. They had the picture of her. Yeah. And this was the dude. I remember this. All right, so I know exactly. I remember finding out about this because the guy who comes over to the house and calls the cops about them. The interview that this guy gave was classic. He's just a random dude on the street, and he's giving an interview, and this is literally the guy off the street. I remember this, and he had them all trapped down there. And I think he impregnated one of them. If I'm not, yeah, I remember this guy. And he hung himself. Yep, he kidnapped Michelle Knight, Amanda Berry, and Gina DeJesus, and he kept them for a long time. Yeah, I remember that. And he hung himself recently. Yeah, he hung himself. Yep, that's him. Yeah, I remember that guy. Like I said, he himself wasn't the most memorable thing about that. It was the guy who rescued the girls, who called the cops. And like I said, I wish I could play that interview. I wish I could find that interview, but yeah, I remember that. How you doing, Hal Jordan? So yeah, I wish I could reenact the Zodiac Killers at my plaza, but I think that would be too spooky. I think the Zodiac Killer is too just modern, because Jack the Ripper is more like he's almost become cartoonish in the way we think about him, But Zodiac, shootings and things like that, the way he killed people was too on the nose for the day. So I don't think I can be able to get that one going. Mondo, a psychic told Barry's mother that her daughter was dead, and the mom died before ever finding out her daughter was still alive. Yeah. I'm pulling up that case right now. Yeah, Amanda Berry. Yep. And let's see, Robert Wolper is a prison inmate. Yeah, because there was another guy who was there was a lot of false information, and one guy got convicted over that. Oh wow, I remember that case. And he had them chained in the basement. That was see, yeah, that guy was sick. When you look at the dude, you're like, how was he able to pull that off? I mean, they were down there for so long. So I'm looking up the whole case file right now because, like I said, it's been a while since I thought about that guy. Yeah, all three of them were rescued. Yeah, I don't know. I could probably do something like that. Ghostface Killer, have Scream, have people picking up the phone, and him threatening them. I don't know. I think that'd be easier for people to figure out. I don't know, but who knows? How you doing, Chappie? He impregnated one of the girls like 9 times, and she had 9 miscarriages, and one of the girls has a kid. Yeah, yeah. I mean, just imagine having a child under those circumstances and raising that kid. And, hey, How I Met Your Father type of situation. I'm like, but it's almost like, and it reminds me of Room, the Brie Larson movie where she won Academy Award for, but not, I mean, on a much higher scale, because that's kind of like the same thing that happened in that movie. Scream 6, I just want Ghostface versus Jason in Sears in New York. Well, Jason is kind of superhuman, so it won't work. Ghostface actually dies when you kill him, when you stab him. So, hello, Rail. Rail Albaros. Am I pronouncing that right? Please let me know if I am. But yeah, man, Zodiac, dude, the Zodiac Killer. Let me pull up Zodiac Killer because I think somehow the Zodiac Killer case will get solved when somebody's relatives unearth something in their basement or something, or somebody's gonna say it on their deathbed. I mean, it's just it's just Paul Stein was the cabbie he killed. By the way, he shot Paul Stein in the back of the head, and actually walked past a police officer, and that's how they got that sketch of him. And then he had all these cryptic letters, codes, and shit. I mean, this guy. I guess I hope I'm alive when they finally find out, because I think he can't be alive. Because you figure, let's say the Zodiac Killer, well, he could be, but he'd be very decrepit. If he was in his 30s, I'm guessing he was late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s. So the Zodiac killings were 53 years ago. He could still be in his 80s, but I don't think he's killing. But there's a good chance he's dead, because the Golden State Killer, they caught that bull when he was 71, and he hadn't killed for quite a while. BTK hadn't killed in 14 years, 13 years. And the only thing that BTK, the only thing that brought him back out into the open is his ego. They were doing an anniversary of the unsolved BTK killings. And they were basically saying, well, it's done, it's over with, he's a ghost. And he couldn't live with being a ghost and not having the attention around him. So he starts sending the news people letters again and threatening that he's going to kill again. Dennis Rader is like 58, 59 years old at this time. I mean, he ain't the old school, guy who could wrestle and choke women down and get into fights with their boyfriends while he's, tying them up. This is an older guy who's dad bod shape. I mean, even worse. But he's going around and he doesn't realize that the time when you're doing killing, the time when you stopped and decided you wanted to get back in the game again, technology has made leaps and leaps and leaps. Had his ego not brought him back into the game, he might have died uncaught, because the case was dead. The case was cold. There were victims that BTK killed that they didn't even find out till after he admitted them. The last 2 victims, they didn't realize that was BTK, because he changed his modus operandi a little bit. They knew about the Oteros. They knew about Nancy Wegler. They knew about Nancy Fox. but they didn't know about those last two. And when they started to put them together, and then when he starts sending out copies of their driver's license and stuff, and then they realize, no, this is really him. This isn't a prankster. This isn't a copycat. And I'm like, dude, just retire. But because he didn't retire, one of the most famous unsolved serial killer cases got solved, and he was stupid. Do you think that sometimes people put way too much stock into Rotten Tomatoes like it's the Bible? Yes. Yes. I think not only that, I think people put too much stock in other people's opinions in general when it comes to movies, critics, and everything else. What you have to understand when it comes to movie going, it's a personal experience. Just like when we were talking about music the other day, that, you know, there's really no such thing as the best Metallica album. The best Metallica album is the one that made you feel the coolest and put you on that type of high when you heard it. It's the same thing with movies. There are a lot of movies I think that are garbage, but my opinion is not your experience. So when we have critics and we have Rotten Tomatoes, their criteria for judging a movie or a TV show is not the same as somebody who just might have to go out and you have to have a good time. You know what? Sometimes I don't need an in-depth story. Sometimes I want to see hot chicks. I want to see shit blow up, and I want to see people get their ass beat. It doesn't have to be The Godfather. So if that checks off my boxes, I'm good. But if a critic's like, oh, well, I needed a passionate understanding, he's going to give it a thumbs down. But I got what I was there to get. He didn't. But does that make any of our opinions any less value? It's up to the people who make these movies to really know who their audience is. Because sometimes I think that the people who do put way too much stock in Rotten Tomatoes and critics' opinions and certain fans' opinions are the studios. And a lot of good movies and franchises get screwed up because they listen to the wrong people instead of listening, you know, check the box office, man. Usually the box office doesn't lie. But if you get these, you know, like that Black Adam, you may not have liked Black Adam, but a lot of people enjoyed Black Adam. But before Black Adam was even hit, the critics were putting that in Dudes Who Are in My Car level of bad. And then people got to see it and they enjoyed it. So yeah, I for the most part, if you have a circle of friends and you guys hang together and you see the same movies and they know your sensibilities, that's different. But a critic, Rotten Tomatoes, nah. Remember the West Mesa Bone Collector and the Alphabet Killer? Yeah. They those guys had movies based on them. The Bone Collector himself. There was a movie that Denzel Washington did, The Bone Collector. 1, Niners 1, 2, Ride the Lightning is the best album. 3, Deckard is a Human. I'm hitting 1,000. All right, so sorry because I know I got some Niners fans in there here. I don't have a dog in a fight. The Niners are going to get their ears blown off next week in Philly. Ride the Lightning is not the best Metallica album. Not even, you know what? And that's the thing, is I just thought about it, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. It's not even close. I don't even have Ride the Lightning number 3 for me. So, and Deckard, once again, is a replicant. So you're not batting 1,000. You're over 3, over 4. You're you know. Sorry. I think we're going to end up with a KC Philly Andy Reid Bowl. Both teams he got to the Super Bowl and the one he won with facing each other. I think it's going to be KC and Philadelphia. Don't go betting the house on mine, but you know these games are going to be tight. But I really think that Cincinnati's going to have a hard time this time around in the rematch, and I think Philadelphia his home field advantage is just too much right now for them the way they're playing there. But you know what? It's 50-50. Why does the name Paul Stein sound familiar? Paul Stein was the cabbie that was he's familiar to me because he was the cabbie that was in the who Zodiac killed. And he's the one, let me see, which number of brick was he? Okay, so down the last. He had a whole bunch of other victims too that people suspect him of. Say like manager. All right, hold on. Let me see. All right, confirmed murders. David Arthur Faraday, and Betty Lou Jensen, both shot and killed December 20th, 1968. Michael Renal McGard, 19, and Darlene Elizabeth Barron, 22, shot on July 4th, 1969 in the parking lot of Rock Springs. Farron was pronounced dead on arrival at Kaiser Foundation Hospital. I actually know where that is. Brian, let's see, September 27. Paul Lee Stein. The spelling of his name is Stine. Shot and killed on October 11, 1968, Presidio Heights neighborhood. He was the cabbie that was shot, and then Zodiac cut a piece of his shirt and sent it to the police and the press just to let you know it was him. I don't know where that name might be familiar anywhere else, but that's where I know the name from. So there you go, Mondo. There have been books about people believing their dad, uncle, brother was Zodiac. Who knows how much of it's real research and how much of it's just an attempt at catching. Yeah, and then some of those guys have bought forth evidence and stuff. I mean, that they say. I mean, shoes. I mean, because remember, Zodiac had a distinct type of shoes that was only available to the military at that time. We didn't have military surplus stores back then, so if you had military gear, you generally were ex-military. And shoes were one of the most distinct things. A lot of the guys who brought them in, I mean, some of them you can see like, okay, yeah, you're just trying to get underneath. And then other ones actually could place their relatives within certain parts of not only Vallejo in Northern California, but in the Riverside area where he's suspected of having a victim down there. So it's interesting. It's just, we're in an era of DNA, and all the DNA that they have was inconclusive. The only thing DNA did is kind of exclude Arthur Lee Allen, who everybody thought was it for a while. Hey, William, do you know the Australian bastard who kept his daughter in the basement and has like 3 kids with her? Yeah. Yep. What was his name? Man, you guys are bringing up some global ones. I remember doing a little bit of research for him because there's a movie based on him too. Hold on. That's right. That's how I got into all this, is because as a horror fan growing up, a lot of these horror things that I follow, a lot of these horror ones I follow are based on, Josef Fritzl. Girl locked up in her cellar for 24 years. Yeah, he has 14 children. He was in the Amsterdam district. Conviction, murder by negligence, rape, because yeah, some of those kids died, and other charges. Life in prison, and he's in. Wow, yeah, this dude. I don't know if I want to put his picture up here, but you look at this guy, you're like, you did it. Whatever the fuck it is, you did it. Yeah, and some of those kids died because of that. He didn't care about the kids. I mean, I don't know how you could have a daughter and do that. I mean, a lot of these serial killers have an outside life, even if they have a family. They don't touch their family. They live a normal life around their family. How could you have a daughter and do that and over and over again? And then have grandchildren and have them just not even care if they died. I mean, but then I guess that's what makes them them. Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, it's your money at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Darth is batting 666 not only because Deckard is irrelevant, but only because Deckard is irrelevant. Okay, the ending of Zodiac always bugged me because I wanted them to catch him. Yeah, I want them to catch. Like I said, I don't care if I live to be 110. If I need to find out who this was. He probably sent a letter to somebody that says, "Open it after I'm dead" or something. I mean, I don't know, man. It just drives me crazy. Just like I said, the Green River Killer, because I was a kid. I was a freshman in high school when I first found out about the Green River Killer. I forgot what we were watching, but I found out. I think I don't know if it was America's Most Wanted. I'm not sure, but just a sheer amount of people that Gary Leon Ridgway killed. He did it so many times that he had no feeling about it. He was sloppy. He was so sloppy. He would always put the bodies in pretty much the same cluster of area, and then he started to spread them out. But by that time, he admitted to 49 killings. I think he's done a lot more, but I think he's done them in areas in the Pacific Northwest that had death penalties at the time, and so he only pled to those. And then there's not enough evidence. But when you kill that many people, that you're burying bodies on top of other bodies that you killed 2 years ago, that's just like, And like I said, I'm like, how have they not caught this guy? But they took a swab of it because he had been questioned in one of the which was a missing persons, and they didn't know what DNA would become, but they knew it was going to be a tool. And thank God that somebody had the wherewithal to take his DNA, and then they were able to match it later on. Because he killed from 1982 to 1984, he killed some 40 some odd people in a 2 year span, and then just stopped all of a sudden, allegedly, as far as what he admits to. But yeah, when they caught BTK, it's like a movie, a great movie that you want an ending to, because like you just can't believe that these guys are walking amongst you, and they almost want to be caught, not because they want to spend the rest of their life in a cage, but they want that recognition. Some of them cannot stand not having their name put on their trophies like that, being anonymous like that. I think the Zodiac was trying to get caught. We just didn't have the mentality and the ability to catch him at the time. 50 Shades of Grey was absolutely trashed by critics, but it made over $569 million at the box office, and it has 2 other sequels that listen to your consumer. And like I said, David, The Suicide Squad, that was panned and it was chopped up. It made $700 some odd million. I mean, so at some point the box office has to be the predominant factor when it goes to making another movie. Do you know about John Bernthal Ramsey character? What do you think happened? I think somebody within the family accidentally killed her. I think I don't think either of the parents did it, but she has a brother. I mean, the evidence of that case, I don't think they ever had breaking and entering or anything like that. And it was just, they focused on the family for years and years and years. Her mother passed away. But I think I think somebody accidentally killed her, and there's nobody fessed up to it. I don't know. That case was always bothering, because I'm like, you found her where they found her, in the house. It's like somebody was trying to hide her, but why would you hide her in the house that you live? I don't know. It just, that case never made sense to me, to be honest with you. And then there just wasn't enough evidence to really go after anybody. The cops always believed that it had to be somebody in the house, but that one's a weird one. Yeah. Yeah, I think everybody thinks so. By the way, they have not made a movie about Jack the Ripper, because that would make a very interesting movie. Yeah, they have. Well, they've all sucked. I mean, okay, I won't. From Hell doesn't suck until you start getting into who they thought was the killer and how they thought that. From Hell was actually great. Johnny Depp film, Christina Ricci. I actually love that movie. I love that graphic novel. But the problem when it comes to Jack the Ripper movies is once they start rolling out who they think the killer is, that's when a lot of the movies for me fall apart. Because then they start going crazy. Or it's a 2 killers or 3 killers. Some of them even entertain that it's a woman. All right, could have been a woman, but here's the thing, though. The likelihood he was frequenting prostitutes, and if there was lesbian prostitutes and things like that, it would have stood out a little bit more, and you would have been able to narrow your suspect pool within 2 days. 2, he was able to overpower these women quickly. Once they knew, that he had them, he was able to kill them without any resistance, any silence. And then he's moving the body in some cases. Because some of the evidence is that the bodies were killed in one place and dragged a little bit. I just don't see it being a woman. It could be, though. It could have been a strong. I mean, and then they would say it's Queens. It was one of the royal family, and I'm like, there's the royal family. Remember, a royal family member headed down to Whitechapel would be like if you saw Joe Biden or King Charles just hanging out in the worst ghetto that you had, and they're just hanging out. You would notice that. You would see that. So I've always thought that whoever Jack the Ripper was, he lived there or he was living there at the time. He was part of the community and he could come and go as he pleased. He knew everywhere around there. He could kill openly because he knew he could always escape. All right. He knew that if cops are coming this way, he could go that way. He had backdoor entrances. He had that place mapped out. And I think he lived there. When we do our Ripper, our Project Ripper, we have backdoors and things like that. We do it as if the suspect that we picked was living in Whitechapel at the time. So a lot of the movies just don't do it that way. You know, there's been some decent movies, but like I said, I'd say the best one was From Hell, but then it falls apart on their theories. Mando Deckard is a human. C. William has a brain the size of a being, so please forgive him. Hey, what did you insult me? Just because you don't understand Blade Runner? You don't follow the clues that Sir Ridley left for you? Oh, William, you know about the G family murder in Logan County way back in 2009? Not as familiar with that one. I probably am somewhat familiar with it, but there's a lot of serial killers. I hate to throw that out there because he was never really charged and, innocent until proven guilty, but I think there might be something to that. I think the reports about the brother would have been outraged and rages, and and she was a kid. I mean, she was a small child. So, can we all agree? Hey, OJ lives out here, by the way. Can we all agree that the most unsolved solved case is OJ trial? No. All right. Now, if you're making the case that OJ physically did the murders, they just didn't. And I watched that trial. They never presented a case where their evidence lined up. And then you had LAPD in the mid 90s, which was not the most up and up organization in certain parts of town there. I mean, Rampart Division, Google it. Was OJ part of it? Did OJ order it? That would have probably been their best bet, but they didn't have enough evidence to even prove that. Okay, I don't know if any of you guys have ever been to Brentwood in California. It's a very, very exclusive area. It's a very tight-knit area, and it's heavily patrolled. If you get lost and turn into Brentwood, make a wrong turn, there's going to be some cops there. How in such an area did two people get hacked up that bad? Nobody heard shit, nobody saw shit, but OJ Super Ninja did it? The guy who had 20 takes just to jump over a suitcase in the Hertz commercial? The dude who needed a stunt double to jump a foot into the air and Naked Gun, he became Master Shredder and did all this? I've always thought that they were all involved in the whole drug game. Somebody didn't get paid, and that's what happens. Does OJ know? Oh, I definitely think OJ knows he did it. But even with the Bruno Mali shoes and the blood evidence was tainted. I mean, I just look at OJ. Now, OJ was 47 years old at the time. Even, like I said, if you and me are getting murdered, if I see somebody in the timing that they lined up for the murder, saying that they happened in the sequence that they said that they happened in, somebody's going to scream. It's just not going to happen like that. I think it was multiple people, but hey, you know what? They had a year to put the case forward, and they just didn't. I mean, all you need is reason. All OJ needed to get off was reasonable doubt, and that case had it laced throughout the entire trial. And had they presented a different case, maybe they could have. But like I said, everything that they put together in that case was circumstantial. There was nothing that excluded anyone else or several people, including the timeline. If you look at the OJ timeline, and they even drove it, how he would have to have done it. Now, did he order it? That's a different trial. And him being found guilty in civil court, like the preponderance of evidence is different than a criminal trial. So that's just my opinion. I remember going through the whole OJ trial, and like I said, I gave the prosecution the benefit of the doubt as if, okay, you're saying this happened at this particular time. He made it to this point in time. You're saying that you're establishing based on your pathologist that these people died within this amount of time, that they were together and they died almost back to back. So it wasn't like they were saying that he got one and then, he laid in wait for the other. The timeline didn't say that as far as what the case that they were trying to prove. And that's, to me, was where they lost their case. You just couldn't fit a realistic timeline. You could say he had the motive and everything else and his outbreaks, and yeah, he beat on her. I could beat the hell out of you and someone else could come and kill you. They just never proved their case to me. And then it became cool just to say, well, OJ got off. But like I said, the LAPD and the Los Angeles District Attorney had millions on top of millions to spend on that case. They had their shot. I mean, the Black Doodler wasn't caught either. There's a lot of uncaught people. We could do a whole stream. I think they should make a Jack the Ripper TV show where each episode is dedicated to each of the suspects. I think they did that. By the way, there's a tour. I'm going to do a virtual tour on next Tuesday, where we get to tour Whitechapel, and it's a virtual tour. I get to go on. It's kind of cool. I'm doing it for research because I'm going to add more to our Project Rippers. Episode 2 of The Last of Us is much better than the premiere. It felt a lot more video game-ish. Okay, see, that's where I'm going to be lost because I haven't played the video game. I just looked up who the Black Dealer is and why the police sketches are just so disturbing to look at. Jack the Ripper was a doctor. Okay, a lot of people say that because he was able to surgically remove other parts. But like we said when we did our Project Ripper, it is very possible that Jack the Ripper could have been a doctor. However, a basic layman could know where the uterus is and could know where a kidney is and could know where, even a poorly educated person just would know to reference those parts. Like, okay, I'm not a doctor, but I know where my stomach is. I know where my heart is. I know where my lungs are. All right. So if I were going to extract those, I wouldn't need to be a doctor to do that. And they say he was precise in the way he did it. Some of the cuts, if you look at the body, are not really. Some of them are very jagged. They could have been by a doctor who was rushed, but he very well could have been a doctor, but he could have been just a guy who knew basic anatomy as well. The likelihood that he's a doctor, I would say 60-40, given some of the suspects that are out there too. Come on, William. OJ did it. Don't make a race issue. Nah, not even a race issue. Nah. I'm going on evidence. Like I said, the timeline is just where it gets me on this one. It's the timeline, the manner of the death, where it was. I mean, we weren't doing this in the hood, and where people are dying every day. They did this in Brentwood. So where he is in Brentwood, where he would have to come from, it's just like I said. If you follow their case and the way they presented their evidence, then it would have been hard to convict him. Because the pillars of their case were the DNA evidence. And like I said, Google 1990s LAPD evidence. That's a whole fucking show on itself. Given the history of some of the people that were involved in LAPD at that time, Mark Thurman did not help. Like I said, your reasonable doubt was there on day one. But like I said, they lost me with OJ. Because like I said, I don't have any love for OJ Simpson one way or another. But like I said, the timeline just didn't do it for me as far as that goes. I've always thought, just if I was looking at the evidence that they produced, that it was multiple people and that they were attacked simultaneously. And that's why there was no screaming, that was a bunch of it was two people simultaneously got them from both directions. Now, if you want to say OJ was one of those people, I mean, like I said, that's not the case they laid out. The case that they laid out was an enraged OJ, big clumsy OJ, retired OJ with bad knees, became the Flash and Super Ninja, and then did all that. And I'm like, oh, the evidence just just didn't line up. Now, maybe if they would have retried that case today and used different evidence and then presented it that way, but I've always had my skepticism when it comes to the OJ case. Yeah, some people, and it's been presented to that and he would do anything to cover for his son. That it was I guess it's Jason something that was him, and that OJ knew it, and he would, like I said, he would rather do the time for his father's obvious parents are obviously going to sacrifice for the kids. That's a theory. Remember when OJ was running away in a highway in his car for hours? He's definitely guilty, especially with his book. If he did it, that didn't help either. Like I said, the case that what I'm saying, I don't know 100. I wasn't there. What I'm saying is the case that was presented in 1995 was not good enough to convict OJ. Whether he did it or not is something we'll never know. But the case that Marcia Clark and Arden and all those guys, Christopher Darden, presented in 1995 wasn't good enough to convict him. There was just too much circumstantial stuff that wasn't backed up by the physical presence that they thought they had. And the Bruno Mali shoes, like I said, there was a reason why they weren't allowed to present that at a criminal trial, because it wasn't conclusive. So, but him running away, like I said, I mean, did he know? Was he involved? Does he know who did it? Did he have somebody do it? But once again, that's not what he was. He wasn't charged with conspiracy to commit murder. He was charged with the outright homicide. So now, is he guilty of something? Probably. Is he guilty of the case that they made against him in 1995 that they couldn't prove? The evidence just wasn't completely there. All right, do they do something with Sherlock and Jack the Ripper, or have I just made that up? No, they've actually done plenty of things with that. And where Sherlock, comes up with his own theory. Trump also got away. Biden will get away with it. We're not going to get political. Because I think OJ I really do think OJ knows who did this. I think OJ knows who did it. It was either a relative, his son, or he was involved in something that, eventually, would cause her to get, like I said, there's a lot of things that, like they were all, involved in drugs, stuff. I mean, that's public knowledge. I mean, who knows if there's a third party involved that, just don't know. But like I said, I don't get into the habit of saying someone's guilty because of things that were not. That's why we have a legal system. I could say, there's a lot of people who've killed people and were found not guilty, or been found guilty with self-defense or stand your ground laws. I could say that. I could say those people are guilty as hell, but we have a system that provides for a prosecutor to present a whole lot of evidence. They had tons of time, tons of money. They didn't make their case. So if we have that system, then it's not up to me, to be honest with you, to say, well, he did it anyway. The jury of his peers acquitted him. Do I agree with that? I don't agree that they brought the case that they needed to convict him. That I do believe 100%. As far as whether he's a killer or not, if you're going to base it on the information that they presented over the year-long trial, then I really could. I would, if I were on the jury, I wouldn't have been able to, and I wouldn't have anything to believe whether I believed he did it or not. You're instructed as a juror to make your call based on the evidence presented, not whether you believe OJ is a killer, not whether you think OJ is a killer or anybody's a killer. You are instructed by law to make your judgment based on the evidence presented and nothing else. That's why those people were sequestered for a year. What I think, I thought that he was going through a lot. I thought that the joke, her response to the joke triggered him in a way that he lost his cool, and it's unfortunate because that didn't ruin, but it really, that should have been the best night of his life as far as his career goes, and it was tainted by that. So Alec Baldwin almost got away with it. He wasn't for those messing. To be honest with you, while that woman's death is unfortunate, I am shocked that they filed those charges. I don't think they're going to convict him. There's just it's just too hard to prove what the serious charges that there are, the intent. On a civil basis, you've already settled out, of course. On a civil way, yeah, he's definitely responsible because he's a producer. But what they're saying is because he was a producer that he's called. Every legal expert that I saw leading up to before they made that decision did not think that there were going to be charges filed. I don't think that he's going to get convicted. It's an uphill battle to prove that. I could be 100% wrong because I'm not on the jury, but it's almost like when the Brandon Lee was killed, there were so many people involved as far as, the safeguards and people who failed and caused that death, that there was no one person that you could nail the intent on that was directly responsible, which is why nobody went to jail over anything like that. I just don't see it here. Could be wrong, though. Once again, I'm not sure. The FBI says that that there's no way that the gun could have gone off. But if I'm Alec Baldwin, I mean, if your claim is that someone put a live round that shouldn't be on the set, whether you pulled the trigger or not, what isn't as relevant because you thought that you had no reason to believe that there's a live round in the weapon. That's going to be where the strength of his case is going to come from, whether you pulled the trigger or not. It's he had no reason to believe that he was welding what was a deadly weapon. And he shouldn't be aiming the gun. I mean, it's if you're playing a cowboy who's supposed to be shooting people, you aiming the gun on set or at the camera is probably going to be something that's going to happen. So whether he pulled the trigger or not, like I said, it's the fact that how did the live round get on the set? It just didn't, something like that is where you probably, like I said, it's a horrible thing that happened. It shouldn't have happened, but I can't see where I can't see where he gets convicted. But once again, I could be 100% wrong on that one. Also, I turned 25 yesterday. I feel so old and young at the same time. Oh, you're making fun of us old people. Happy birthday. The armorer is the one that needs to make sure that the gun and the bullets are safe. That's why Alec Baldwin was getting most of the heat. Yeah, this is going to be I think this is going to be an almost impossible case to convict, but I'm not a legal expert and I'm not on that jury. So with Alec Baldwin problem, the victim's husband settled and is a producer now. Does this mean that the victim's husband is now liable? Nah, because it's after the fact. Agree, as I don't like no one cares about Alec Baldwin's situation anymore. It's like it's a horrible situation, and that when I heard about that, that's awful. That's awful. And they're still finishing the movie too, which is even more mind blowing. William, I feel the production company of Rush cheaped out on got cheap armor that that didn't know what she was doing. Yeah, and that could be 100% true. When it comes to the out of court, the settlement that the family got, that's where the civil case would be. Is that criminal though? Is that going to be enough for criminal negligence? That's going to be where the jury is going to have to be. When you're saying homicide, direct murder, I mean, that's going to be a tough one. Not saying it's impossible, but I just don't see him getting convicted. I see him getting acquitted of that, and it's horrible. And like I said, it's I think it was a horrible accident. I think people are responsible. I just don't know if they're criminally responsible or are going to end up doing jail time. What's going on? So not. All right, so we're about at 12:40. And don't be like, getting on Twitter saying William thinks OJ is it. No, I am saying that they didn't present the evidence that they needed to convict him. There was too many holes in their case, and like I said, they just didn't do it. And they just, there's just so much about that just is just a big question mark. So, like I said, your original question was that an unsolved mystery. Like I said, I wouldn't if somebody on their deathbed said I did it, I was there, OJ sent me to do it or something like that, I would be surprised. That was such a wild and wacky time. Victim's husband wants to finish the movie that killed his wife. That's nuts. That's to finish her work, I guess. That's. Which my favorite foreign language movie? Oh shit, dude! I've seen so many. Oh wow, dude. Well, a lot of my silent movies, like Metropolis, were foreign languages, but they were silent. So I guess I could. Wow, that's a tough one. Ooh, dude, you guys hit me with these things every night. My favorite foreign language movie. I can't. I'm drawing a blank right now. I know I have one, but I just haven't ever been asked that question. Damn, it's a good one. No, I mean, there's no reason for Live Ammo to be on the set. Period. It's not a range. It's not a range. So once it reaches his hands, he's the last person in the Army. Okay, so it's different because Army Armed Forces, totally different situation. But we're still talking about firearms. Okay, so when you get your weapon from the armory, as soon as we get it, turn in your weapons card as soon as you get that M16. You pop it open, you look down the barrel, you pull it out, you clear it, everything else. Even though it's been sitting in that armory overnight and it was cleared the night before, you check that anyway. The armorer is checking it, he does it, he hands it to you, he pops it open. So if you know how M16 works, you pull the bolt, pull the release, you have it, and you basically have it V'd up like this. So you can see down the barrel, the bolt is already back. You look down the barrel, there's nothing there. There's nothing in the chamber because you got the bolt back, so there's nothing there. And then he hands it to you, and you confirm that. You put it back together, and then you go out there. When you're firing your rounds, no matter what we are firing, whether it's blanks, training rounds, which are blue, or you're firing the real thing, when you come up off that range, there is another guy there with a rod. All right, to make sure you immediately when you're done, you lock your bolt back and you face that weapon up. So another person comes by, he takes a look into that breech, he can see that there's not a round in that breech. All right, so there's so many checks and balances, and we're trained to use these things. So when we get up from firing at the range, at prone position, whatever, we get up, we take that weapon that's already put its bolt backwards. All right, magazine's been dropped, bolt empty. There's a guy that rods us off the rein when he puts it down the barrel, and once the bolt comes forward, we know that that's empty. We keep it that way, and we turn it into the armorer when we're done. So if you're an armorer, I would have to assume that an armorer of any kind has to be doing those things. And if that is your job, and that is what you do, if it's my job to make sure that there's not a live round in a weapon, that's and I don't do my job, I can't expect everybody else to do a dry fire. That's my job to make sure that when you get that weapon, it's ready to be fired, and whatever's supposed to be in there is supposed to be in there. All right. If I'm an armorer and I hand you a weapon and you have to dry fire it, that means I shouldn't be an armorer. If I hand you a weapon and I say it's cold or I say it's clear, weapon unsafe, no brass, no ammo, right? I say that, and you have to turn around and do that as the armorer in a civilian world, then why are you the armorer? That's dangerous even having you on there because it's 50-50 that there's a live round in there. So to me, the weight is on the armorer. So I don't see any reason why he would dry fire. I mean, you either, if you got a guy that's supposed to be doing the job, and he's an armorer, there's just no way that should happen. See, with Brandon Lee was different because of the fragment that they didn't clear. This is a round. They had a live round, in a place where a live round had no place. You see, with the Army, you could at least see that mistake with live rounds, and we have training rounds. So we had blanks. We were sitting there in the same area. We have a reason to have live rounds. We have reasons to have training blanks. That's why we were so safe with our stuff. You're on a movie set. There's no reason for a live round to be there. So to me, that's on the armor 100%. You shouldn't have to really go behind that. William, do you think Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone? I think he acted alone. I think the CIA knew of him. I think the CIA and the FBI may have dropped the ball on apprehending him and taking him off the playing field before he did what he did. But I don't think anybody had the imagination to think that guy could do it. And I think the reason why there's a conspiracy theory around Lee Harvey Oswald is because nobody can believe that somebody who's a nobody could take out somebody who's that big of a somebody. It's just to kill a president, to kill Camelot, that a random nobody could do that. That's just unbelievable. So people just don't believe it. William, do you think the reason is because a lot of executives at the studios want to feel praise, and if one of his movies gets trashed by the critics, they feel embarrassed? Yeah, I think there's a lot of egos in it. You know, a lot of them control that too. So, all right, instead of listening to your consumer, listen to your consumer. Listen, like I said, Velma's getting fucking destroyed. All right, but I guarantee you, these people are hate watching that show. I gave it 10 minutes. I'm like, this ain't for me. But then I didn't rate it. I didn't do anything. But the people who are like, oh, I cannot believe. I've seen so many posts about Velma being just the worst show ever, but they're watching it. So they're putting these numbers up, and these guys are like, oh wow, look how many people controversy selling. Let's do a season 2. Oh, they're gonna shit in their pants over there being in season 2, but it keeps them in conversation. Sometimes that's all you need. If people just watch Velma and be like, you know what, that's not for me. It sucked. Probably wouldn't even, get it, but they want to hate, they want to hate watch it. I'm like, dude, why are you hate watching some shit that you don't like? Now it's got a second season, and it looks weird, by the way. I saw what was supposed to be Shaggy, and I'm like, that's Shaggy? And it's kind of raunchy. And it just really doesn't have anything to do with Scooby-Doo, which is probably its main problem. Rational William, on the Rust set, some of the crew members were using the guns beforehand, shooting at bottles. That shouldn't have even been allowed on the set. See, that's where they're civilly negligible. I mean, but criminally, whenever you have firearms everywhere, those firearms should be secured, and nobody should be using those, touching those weapons that soon to wherever. And if somebody is using those weapons, that armor, just like the Army, that armor is taking that weapon, he's clearing that weapon, and he's making sure that the next guy is at a clean slate. That there's nothing in that breach, nothing. Now there's no fragments in there. The bolts lock back. I mean, like I said, I don't. If for those of you who've ever been on a military range, you know that we're fanatics about rifle safety. You're not even allowed. If you have a weapon and you accidentally turn towards the range personnel and you got the barrel aimed at them, even if it's empty, they'll slap that barrel out of your hand and scream at you, because the discipline. When you handle firearms, there has to be a sense of urgency and a discipline to it. When you go into the military and when you first go to BRM, which is basic rifle marksmanship, you don't even get your hands on a weapon for like 3 weeks. The first 3 weeks of basic rifle marksmanship is about safety. It's about SLAP, which is pull, observe, report, things like that as far as your weapon goes. Like if your weapon jams, a pop and no kick, that's the kind of thing that could lead to a round dispersing and killing somebody. You just go through classes, and then the next week you get a rubber ducky, which we call a rubber ducky. It's a heavy rubber M16, and they want to see how you carry that. You learn how to carry that. You learn not to aim it at people. You learn not to let it drop. You learn what to do with it. You learn how to hold it so that no accidents happen. And then on week 3.5, you get the empty, unloaded weapon you get to carry around. Then a couple of days later, you get some live rounds. But by the time you get that weapon in your hand, there's such a discipline at it that you're looking out for everybody. You're looking at, is the weapon unsafe? I mean, shit like that. These are things that are like, normal shit for us. And it has to be that way for an armorer, because an armorer, see, with the military, we are handling our weapons, and we are also the ones shooting our weapons. All right. We're on a movie set. Alan, the actors are not professional people. They are not professionally trained in that regard. They don't have the discipline that a military person is going to have. So the armorer has to be the person that has that discipline for them. And so if this was happening on set, then yeah, damn, that's just an accident waiting to happen. All right, thoughts on the Rambo franchise? The last one, the first two were epic. I actually, you know what? The first three. I love the first three. Which one was the one where he gets on that fucking 50 cal? The one where he's in Burma, where I think it's just called Rambo. I think that's the one of the newest ones. He gets on a 50 cal and just starts mowing people down. And it was glorious. It was beautiful. I think I teared up. Because when you watch gunfire in movies, people are going like, oh, and they're like getting hit by a 50 cal round, which is like this big, that can just rip you apart. And they're like, oh my God, I'm dying. No. When Rambo goes to town on these fools, bodies are exploding. Heads are just exploding. Limbs are getting shot off. He just mows down like 30 or 40 guys. And I just watched the scene over and over again. And I'm like, Rambo still got it. So I like the Rambo franchise in general. It was a cool Cold War type of thing, Vietnam veteran, and he's dealing with Russians in the next two. So yeah, I love Rambo. William, why did armor and director allow crew members to play with the guy? I do not fucking know. That's the discipline. That's the discipline that you have. I wish everybody who ever got a firearm could at least go to somewhat of a basic rifle or basic, weapons marksmanship school, because it's not about shooting a weapon and hitting targets. That's part of it. It's about the discipline that comes with that weapon, and clearly there wasn't that kind of discipline on this set. Exactly, and the crazy part is that they were there was even hate when they announced the show, and the characters were going to look like, and I actually think they were ready to hate. Yeah, they were ready to hate on it. And like I said, HBO Max is like, you're going to hate? Okay, cool. We're going to cash in on your hate. I saw one of those AI-generated art videos of Scooby-Doo as a live-action 80s horror movie. It looked so awesome. We really cared. Man, you think they're rioting now over Velma? All right, and the grifters are automatically going to be making money out of this outrage. And you know who's else is going to be making money? HBO Max and HBO. And Warner Brothers, they're making money off of your hate. There's no such thing as bad publicity, I guess. They're looking at the raw numbers. All right, guys, thank you. The semi-overnighter is complete. An hour and 8 minutes. I did pretty good tonight, and because I'm feeling a little bit better. Jason King, you just came out there and I opened up The Last of Us Episode 2 of the show. Cameron Push. Okay, hold on. You're making a spoiler alert. So. All right, Jacob. Nice. Glad you were able to show up, but we're about to wrap it up. So sorry. I will see you guys tomorrow, unless Enosh is streaming. If Enosh is streaming, I'll probably be on his show. Otherwise, I will see you guys I might not stream as much during the week, because I found out when I stream, I get it all off my chest, and there's not much to talk about when it comes to the Friday overnighter. So who knows? All right, guys. Until next time, America. I need a new outro. Somebody make me a new outro. Till then, let's go with the old one.